It's just empty.
Yeah, all the, it's a little bit. This was a hat store for a while. It just became empty.
I am black. That's what you are thinking if you've watched Adrian Piper's 1988 performance video, Cornered. I am the last black man in San Francisco on a boat headed out into the bay. If you saw that movie, I saw it. Pretty good. But I'm on a boat that's not going anywhere. It's in a dock on the bay, like the song. This is my office. This is my space that I come to now for a little bit. I have a house. Got a little tight after 2 years. Shared space. You know, stuff happens in shared space. So this is my space. Some days, for a moment, trying it out. It's my friend's space. It's his son's boat. My friend's got a houseboat. A few docks up. He's sharing that space. It's a little tight, but he's doing all right. They are doing all right. Yeah. I could tell you stories. Not so much about the dock or the boat. I will tell you stories. Kind of about that age now. Right? Elder. Got my Medicare. It helps, right? Every bit. It helps. Got my glasses. Costco. Well, Costco messed up my nice glasses from Paris. They're cute. Came back, tried to get the lenses right. Costco ate them. Anyway, Costco got me some other glasses. They did me all right. I'm looking. Looking for the dance. Looking for the B. Yeah, sometimes I'm looking for the D. Aren't we all? You know, on some level. Blacks. Frequent. Disco, but no D. If you flip through the Bob Dameron address book, kind of the gay green book from the 60s, 70s, 80s, they have a code for all kinds of things. Well, some kind of things, you know, it's a code to help some kind of people, some very specific kind of people, you know, who are looking to meet that same kind of person, that same gender, same sex, same race, really. Or if they're not, well, then they're looking to find that difference. Somewhere, anywhere, where they go. Wherever they go. Go around town. Go around San Francisco. Go around the country. Back in the day, you know, before all that technology. So they go looking. I'd go looking. I can buy a book, you know. I did when I was young, of course. Going places. Wanna, you know, get what I came for when I got there. Whatever it is. Whatever happened to be there, I was a little, you know, slutty, okay. Ho-ish. 21, 22, like what else do you do? So that's the code. B, blacks frequent, right? I mean, they don't have like a A, Asians frequent, L. They're just like, I guess, you know, didn't occur to somebody that's, you know, those folks, I don't know. I don't know. I didn't write the book. I've written other books. So. Anyway, I'm looking for where we are and where we've been, where we were. All the we's that are me, not necessarily at the same time. You know, artist, dancer, you know, all that. And that kind of stuff. I'm looking. So somewhere on Pacific Street, I'm not sure if it's 535 or there's no 543 with the number. There's the old Hippodrome building. That's 545. Maybe that's it.
Amazing. So wonderful to have you all here. I'm Legacy Russell, the Executive Director and Chief Curator of the Kitchen. Thank you. Welcome back. Welcome back. So I want to just take a moment to welcome you all to the Black aesthetic at the new Eagle Creek Saloon. With the kitchen celebrating its ongoing 50th, our mission and values center artists and their voices first. Since its inception in 1971, the kitchen, based here in Chelsea, has been a local, national, and international meeting place for the avant-garde and experimental art. It is meaningful to be here with each of you today and holding space with what promises to be a most gorgeous evening ahead of us. To note, this project began with many conversations with the incredible Sadie Barnette many years now ago during my time at the Studio Museum in Harlem. And really, the vision of this coming to New York was the possibility of having the Eagle Creek Saloon be resurrected inside of a city that just keeps changing, where Black movement and queer movement have dictated so much of the history of the land that we stand on. This is why, even though we are not in Harlem tonight, Harlem certainly is here in this room. It is resonant now to have this project cited here at the kitchen, as it reminds us to retrace a historical line between the neighborhoods of Harlem and Chelsea, two important and political sites that are bound up in their relationship to one another across time. In the early part of the 20th century, there was a migration of Black people from downtown to uptown. Across the 1970s, alongside the piers just some blocks away, and winding its way through the blocks of the surrounding neighborhood, was a vibrant queer community, innovators in the avant-garde that did the gorgeous work to take up space and shape the tradition of performance and visual culture that we know now today. This is an intersection of art history that, as it arcs to the present day, paves the way for the groundbreaking thinkers like Madison Moore, who is here with their inspired nightlife in residence, which is run across the course of Sadie's incredible exhibition, and as well brought into being Sadie's new Eagle Creek Saloon. Timely and powerful reflections on the intersections of culture that have been made, erased, and reimagined all over again. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Studio Museum in Harlem, where Sadie and I began on this journey, the phenomenal teams across the kitchen and the Studio Museum alike, who really have rode with me for this project: Carrie, Zach, Sienna, Paula, Iki, and Al Foote. Pro Bono ASL, who is here with us this evening. We are so grateful. Madison Moore, for your enduring contributions and presence. We all so love having you here as you continue in your work and research. All of the artists who have been part of this amazing experience across an exciting suite of programs and Saturday sessions as they've unfolded. The next one actually is the 5th of March. We hope you all will join us for Taiga Pa. And then as well, of course, the generous support of Bernard Lumpkin, Carmine Bacuzzi, Agnes Gund, and Olivier Bergeron and Desiree Welsing, alongside of the Open Society Foundations, Lambent Foundation Fund of Tide Foundations, and Keith Haring Foundations, with the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council and New York State Council on the Arts, with the support of the Office of the Governor and the New York State Legislature. And then, of course, I want to give ultimate thanks, joyfully, to the Rodney Barnette, who is here with us tonight. He is sitting here. And who just in a moment, after many introductions more, so stay tuned, will be in conversation with his incredible daughter, Sadie, a teammate, a collaborator, a thinker. Rodney, just a few weeks ago, we had the joy of witnessing teens on the dance floor. I was with Sadie and thinking very much so about the generations that have carried us to this very point. The possibilities of these moments of blend and blur that bring together space and time and vision and community pay homage to the call to action of your original Eagle Creek Saloon as being, quote, a friendly place with a funky bass for every race, which was, of course, the slogan that reminds us of the technology of Black and queer networks, the biological and chosen families we shape and carry with us when we arrive inside of and fight to realize and archive these sites, and truly the magic made possible in the care provided by them. It is so very felt. Thank you, Rodney. It is my pleasure then to turn now to introduce Leigh Raiford. Leigh Raiford is a professor of African American Studies at the University of California, Berkeley, where she teaches, researches, curates, and writes about race, gender, justice, and visuality. She is the author of Imprisoned in a Luminous Glare, Photography in the African American Freedom Struggle, co-editor with Heike Rafael Hernandez of Migrating the Black Body, Visual Culture in the African Diaspora, and co-editor with Renee Romano of the Civil Rights Movement in American Memory. Raiford is the inaugural director and co-principal investigator with Tiana S. Paschal of the Black Studies Collaboratory, a 3-year initiative to amplify the world building of Black Studies funded by the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation. Please join me in welcoming Leigh Raiford.
Greetings, everyone. Again, my name is Leigh Raiford, and I'm a professor of African American and African Diaspora Studies here at UC Berkeley. And I'm the director and co-PI of Tiana S. Paschal of the Black Studies Collaboratory. We are thrilled to be partnering with the Kitchen and the Studio Museum in Harlem, and especially the phenomenal Legacy Russell on tonight's event. The Black Aesthetic, an evening of film and conversation, is the second of 10 events organized by the Abolition Democracy Fellows Program of the Black Studies Collaboratory, and was conceived by Abolition Democracy Artist Fellow, the inimitable Sadie Barnette. I am joining you today from the Department of African American Studies, the 6th floor here at UC Berkeley. This campus is sited on the territory of the Huchun, the ancestral and unceded land of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone, the successors of the historic and sovereign band of Alameda County. This land was and continues to be of great importance to the Muwekma Ohlone tribe and other familial descendants of the Verona Band. We acknowledge and pay respect to Muwekma Ohlone ancestors, peoples today, and the Muwekma Ohlone future to come. And in acknowledging the Ohlone history of the land where I am, we acknowledge the Ohlone people are thriving members of this community who are actively imagining more just futures and engaging the tools that are needed to do that imaginative work. So whether you are joining us from Ohlone lands, from Mannahatta on Lenape land, elsewhere on Turtle Island or beyond, thank you for being with us today. The Black Studies Collaboratory is committed to amplifying the world-building work of Black Studies, and the Abolition Democracy Fellows Program is a centerpiece of the Collaboratory. Since September, the 15 fellows in our program, ages 20 to 77, activists, artists, academics from a range of disciplines, speaking multiple languages at various stages in their careers, gathered weekly with care and audacity, with wonder and joy to envision alternative presents and futures. The fellows curated this 10-event series, and we are thrilled to open up this space of critical engagement and collaborative imagining towards more just futures. Sadie Barnette has been an incredible presence and fierce co-conspirator in the Black Studies Collaboratory. Across the arc of her work, Sadie is attuned to living spaces and ways to find breathing room in the wake of oppressive histories and their abhorrent legacies. For the new Eagle Creek Saloon's first iteration at the lab in San Francisco in 2019, Sadie invited the Black aesthetic to activate the space and later to join Sadie, her father, Rodney Barnette, and others on the new Eagle Creek Saloon float at San Francisco Pride Parade. Since 2016, the Black aesthetic has nourished generative and deeply imaginative art spaces committed to the multidimensionality of Black life. Their radical commitment has been a bulwark and a bright spot in hyper-gentrifying Oakland and the wider Bay Area, whose Black queer artist communities stay under duress. In the spirit of the Eagle Creek Saloon, of the Rainbow Sign, of the Black Panther Party and the Third World Women's Alliance, of Black Women Organized for Action, of Marcus Books, of Sweet Jimmy's Jazz and Blues in West Oakland, of Marlon Riggs's collaborations with Essex Hemphill, Brian Freeman, and Joseph Beam, and countless Bay Area cultural political assemblages and institutions, the Black aesthetic works to archive the Black cultural past and dream otherwise futures. So it felt important to us then that tonight's event in New York highlight this very Bay Area iteration of what is a very Black, very queer story. And it felt important that we make this permissive, protective circle as wide open and as accessible as possible. Space and room, breath and belonging, wherever you are joining from, we are here now together. Tonight, we celebrate potential history, not just the story of what was, but of what might have been and what could still be. And we make the conditions of possibility for our collective survival. Creating the conditions of care where people can dream big is hard collective work. Before I turn it back over to Legacy, Russell, Tiana, and I want to thank all those who have made today possible. Collaboratory project manager, Barbara Montano, grad student assistant, Gilberto Rosa Duran, undergraduate research assistant, Grant Yackel, all the incredible folks at the kitchen, especially Sienna, Zach, and the tech crew who made this bi-coastal multi-platform collaboration possible. I want to thank our Spanish language interpreters, Marcy Valdivieso and Isidro Mencos, as well as ASL interpreters from Pro Bono, Rory Burton and Selena Flowers. I want to thank the Andrew Mellon Foundation. I want to thank all of you folks in attendance at the kitchen, all of you joining us via YouTube, and I want to thank the ancestors always present. And I want to thank the Black aesthetic, Jamal Batts, Nan Collymore, Malika Imhotep, and Leila Weefur for curating a beautiful film and program for us. I want to thank Sadie and Rodney Barnette for inviting us into their collaboration. And I want to thank Legacy Russell. Together, we widen this circle of radical care and joyous sweat. Enjoy.
So we've had the opportunity to hear a little bit about what will happen this evening, but I want to just share very briefly a little bit about the Black aesthetic. The Black aesthetic as a collective cultivates work that invites audiences to consider their relationship to Black creative thought and practice. Through film screenings, performances, and publications, they contribute to a growing collection of artistic visions and dialogues that are grounded in place, body, and lived experience. As writers, visual artists, and curators, they collaboratively create experiences that unleash Blackness from disciplinary boundaries, be they in form, content, or comportment. The Black Aesthetic has produced 4 seasons of experimental film screenings and 3 edited volumes, which are incredible. Find them. TBA, the Black Aesthetic, has as well comprised of scholar, writer, and curator Jamal Batts, writer, artist, and curator Nan Collymore, Black feminist performance artist, scholar, cultural worker Malika Imhotep, and artist, writer, and curator Leila Weefur. Tonight, TBA will offer further context and dimension to the new Eagle Creek Saloon with a presentation of film, video, and performances centering Black, queer, Bay Area nightlife of the 1990s. The film presentation will begin immediately following the conclusion of Sadie and Rodney's dialogue. The Black Aesthetic would like to thank the GLBT Historical Society, archivist Marjorie Breyer, Frameline, and the Electronic Arts Intermix for permissions, as well as Reverend Marvin K. White, Brian Freeman, and Grant Yackel for editorial assistance in preparing tonight's program. And now on to our other guests of honor. A bit about Sadie Barnette. Sadie Barnette has a BFA from Cal Arts and an MFA from University of California, San Diego. Her multimedia practice illuminates her own family history as it mirrors a collective history of repression and resistance in the United States. The last born of the last born, and hence the youngest of her generation, Barnette holds a long and deep fascination with the personal and political value of kin. Barnette's adept materialization of the archive, which we're standing in today in part, rises above a static reverence for the past. By inserting herself into the retelling, she offers a history that is alive. Her drawings, photographs, and installations collapse time and expand possibilities. Political and social structures are a jumping off point for the work, but they are not the final destination. Her use of abstraction, glitter, and the fantastical summons another dimension of human experience and imagination. She is represented by Jessica Silverman Gallery and lives and works in Oakland, California. And now Rodney Barnette. Rodney Barnette is the youngest of 11 children, born in 1944 in West Medford, Massachusetts, one of the oldest African-American communities in the United States. By age 17, his experiences of racism, police brutality, and white supremacy led him to the fruit of Islam as a follower of Malcolm X. To chronicle Barnette's years of dedication to fighting for social justice is to recount the stories of some of the most important fights against racism and state repression in the United States after World War II. After being drafted and sent to Vietnam, he organized against discrimination in the military, came home to participate in the anti-war movement, and after drawing connections between the United States war abroad and its war against its own African-American population at home, founded the Compton, California chapter of the Black Panthers in 1968. While a college student in San Francisco, Barnette was invited to organize with the National Committee to Free Angela Davis. After her release, he turned his attention to the labor movement, first as a factory worker and later as a union representative. Equally important and always interconnected has been his connection to family and community. In the early 1990s, he opened the first Black-owned gay bar and nightclub in San Francisco with the help of many of the Barnette brothers and facilitated a space of progressive dialogue and celebration. Please join me in welcoming Rodney Barnette and Sadie Barnette.
Hello.
Hello.
Wow, thank you for being here with us. And thank you for bearing with all the names and thanking. That's actually a big part of this project, is saying the names, connecting the dots, acknowledging the community. So I as well have some thank yous that I have to do before we jump into this dialogue and really go in depth into the Eagle Creek past and present. So first of all, I want to thank y'all for being here in person and also on the live stream. I want to thank deeply San Francisco's The Lab under the stewardship of one amazing Dina Beard for originally commissioning this wild piece and unruly vision in 2019. I want to also acknowledge the legendary history of the kitchen and the new leadership of Legacy Russell. Thank you to Sienna Paquette and Zach for install magic and the entire staff. I also want to thank Madison Moore for bringing so much life and energy to this amazing collaboration. I couldn't even have dreamt of what you've brought. I want to thank the Studio Museum and Thelma Golden as always, always, always. I want to thank Jessica Silverman, the gallery, Catherine Wade. And I also have a lot of really deep gratitude to Professors Leigh Raiford and Tiana Pichelle of UC Berkeley's Black Studies Collaboratory. It has been a huge honor to be a fellow at UC Berkeley this year, especially after essentially dropping out of Berkeley High School and never thinking that I would be officially invited to UC Berkeley. So it's been amazing. I also want to thank Grant Yackel, research assistant / hype man. And I am forever grateful to the Black Aesthetic for bringing heart and history to this project since 2019. Ra and Jamal, as was mentioned, rode with us on the float that we did for San Francisco Pride in 2019. And there's just certain parts of this project, of this revival, that can't really be explained. You just kind of had to be there. And that was one of those moments. So y'all are forever Eagle Creek VIP for that one. And yeah, also just on a personal note, we both really want to thank my mother, Ellen Schaefer, who keeps us together. Clap it up for my mom. And obviously to Stephen Thompson, who fabricated this entire bar / sculpture / time machine with such passion and grace that we actually fell in love and are now husbands. So the last thing that I want to mention before we really get started is to acknowledge those who are no longer with us. At every step of building the bar, Stephen and I thought about our ancestors and those who fought for the world in which we walk in, taking liberties and freedoms in how we express ourselves and love and live, and not even bothering to explain. I also want to specifically take a moment of silence and breath for those that we lost to AIDS, both in our family and in the greater community, as the government stood by, and spaces like the Eagle Creek were really ways that people took care of each other. So if we can just take a moment and a breath. Thank you. So we're gonna wrap. You know, we could talk about everything. We could talk about our influences, people, places that have shaped us. We could talk about the world that we want to see. We could talk about what we don't like about the world that we currently have. But my hope is that by going really specifically into the history of the new Eagle Creek Saloon, you can kind of make those connections to all the things that are also connected, you know, and sometimes the more specific you get, I feel that it connects to these expansive, you know, overlapping concerns, communities, references. There's so much there, but I hope that you can, you know, connect it and think of your own influences and the spaces that shaped you and the bars and all of the, you know, names that we can't possibly hold and speak out and say, but holding space for those unknown names and spaces as well. And one way that we kind of, that I really located the history for this bar within this project is in the zine, which hopefully you had one on your chair. And, you know, really what happened was I began this project. We did a lot of research about the bar or hoped to do research looking for the history of the bar, and realized that there really was no real paper trail for the new Eagle Creek. So I figured when there is no archive, you make one. So, you know, this is an important way for the history to move throughout, you know, beyond who can come and hang out at the actual bar. And I think a really good distillation of, you know, a lot of my father's work in history is in this first article written by our friend Kelvin Fincher. So I definitely encourage people to check that out. And that's a little bit of the history that we're going to get into right now. And so I really want to start by asking my father about how you came to San Francisco and, you know, what led you to setting up the Eagle Creek.
Okay, I have to back up a little bit before I talk about San Francisco. It's connected, but I was drafted into the Army and sent to Vietnam, and actually wasn't really in support of the war. There wasn't anti-war movement at the time. I conferred with my family about even being drafted, and they convinced me to just go ahead. At any rate, when I got out of the Army, I had gotten wounded, and a good friend of mine died actually pretty much in my arms. But when I got out, my nephew got killed in Vietnam, and my oldest sister's son. So I came to LA to go to his funeral. And I went to the funeral and was watching the news on TV, and the Los Angeles Police Department were doing things that we did in the war, you know, and they were doing things that would, if we did in the war, would be considered against the war crimes. It would be war crimes. So they were going in people's houses online like we did in the war, and they were killing Black people. And I found out that there was an organization, Black Panther Party, that had a 10-point program to deal with the discrimination, the racism, and the assassination of Black people by the police. So I joined them, and you know, was active. They taught me how to organize. The community was very ripe to be organized, and I winded up having meetings in Compton at my brother and sister-in-law's house in the garage, and it grew fast enough that we needed our own chapter. So we had a chapter 9 in Compton, California. You know, as things went on, the FBI, I think, was causing assassinations of activists. To tell you the truth, we weren't really gun-toting Panther Party in Los Angeles. We were trying to implement the 10-point program, which provided free breakfast programs for children and free medical care and a lot of things like that that the community needed. But I began to feel like we're being infiltrated, and that there were FBI agents that were kind of even taking leaderships in the position in the Panther Party. One day I was called into the office and told that I had to implement in my chapter in Compton some disciplinary action for members. And I asked, you know, what was that about? And basically, I don't want to go into all the details, but I refused to do it because it didn't make sense to me. And they gave me an alternative. And I realized that that was an agent that was taking some leadership position. They all of a sudden came up from the underground. And at any rate, so the FBI, it turns out, was after me also. And I had a job. I got hired at the post office in Los Angeles, and I was doing a good job, showed up every day and did my job. But then I was confronted with whether I was a good employee or not. And they were going to terminate me because they claimed that I was cohabiting with a woman that I wasn't married to, and that it was conduct unbecoming of a government employee. So to make another long story short, they wound up firing me on that basis. So my family continued to move to Los Angeles from Boston, from Medford, Massachusetts. And my brother came out with his wife and 2 kids. And so the apartment I had, I turned over, you know, to them. My unemployment ran out. I didn't have any job. I didn't have any more money. So I remembered that during the anti-war demonstrations that we had, one of them was, well, not just one time, but we went to San Francisco to have a mass demonstration. And I noticed the people in San Francisco were really supportive of the march and friendly, and were playing music as we marched through the streets. They would play music out of the windows and applaud and have signs and everything. I said, wow, this is really different from LA. And Los Angeles, when we had anti-war demonstrations, they would say, go back to Africa, you know. People weren't really supportive at that point. And LA was very segregated, you know. Black people lived in one area, South Central, eventually Compton. The Latinos lived in East LA, and white people lived everywhere else. So anyhow, so I decided to hop on a Greyhound bus, take a ride to San Francisco and kind of resettle there. And to tell you the truth, that's how the FBI had kind of lost track of me, because they went to my house that my brother had taken over and asked, where was I? And they said, well, we don't know where he's at. At any rate, when I came to San Francisco, you know, a number of assassinations had taken place in the Panther Party. And all of a sudden, J. Edgar Hoover put out FBI 10 most wanted for Angela Davis. And I said to myself, oh no, you're not gonna kill Angela Davis. We won't let that happen. And the community was ripe for that. And we organized right there in San Francisco. You should know that gay people played a big role in organizing. We had separate benefits and meetings and stuff, not separate from the regular movement, but in addition to. And you know, not much news about that, but that's what happened. So I was going to school in San Francisco City College, and I had transferred to go to school in Santa Rosa. And in Santa Rosa, that's when Angela had eventually surrendered, and her trial was going to be in Marin County. So we had a very important role being active in Santa Rosa. We had the largest demonstration ever held at that school. We had carpools that were prepared to take people to the courtroom, and we were very supportive. And then you know, we were asked to join the National Committee after that. And that's how I got involved with the Angela Davis Committee. But go ahead.
So, you know, that was like 1972, and you're in San Francisco, and, you know, it really was in many ways the, you know, somewhat progressive and organizing atmosphere that brought you up to San Francisco and kept you there. So you stayed there, you know, throughout the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. Maybe you could talk a little bit about, you know, the climate in which you felt the need to establish the bar. So it wasn't just that you always had, you know, a dream of owning a bar, being an entrepreneur, but it was really in direct response to the racism that you and your friends and your community would experience at the predominantly white gay bars in San Francisco. So maybe you could talk about why you needed to open the bar.
Yeah, okay. What happened was I found out that from trying to go into the different bars in San Francisco that we weren't welcome as Black people. And there were different things done to us. They would ask us for 3 pieces of ID instead of just identifying yourself with 1 piece of ID. Originally, there was a bar, it was, and they had, you know, segregated people inside of the bar. Black people were in one corner, and white people were, and you know, mostly white men in one other area. And so when Black people were dancing, they would take the music off. They would shut the music off and say, no body contact in this bar. That's one of the examples. And then there was a local bar that had only a jukebox, and it was full with Black music with good, rock and roll and pop music and so forth. And it seemed like people were really getting together. There was a mixed crowd and people were happy. The next night we went there, they took all the Black music off of the jukebox and started asking for 3 pieces of ID for the Black patrons that would want to go there. And there's stories of picketing, we picketed different bars, protesting their practices. And eventually the Castro became so white male dominated. I lived in the Mission District, and to get to where I want to go across town, you should drive, the easiest route is to drive right through, straight through the Castro District. But it bothered me so much that I went around and then came back around to go where I needed to go to the Visadero and Folsom areas.
Maybe you could tell the specific story about Denise Williams when she came to town and performed. And
right, there was a large gay bar up in North Beach in San Francisco, and they wouldn't let Black people come in there if you had a hat on, if you didn't have the right shoes on. So they had a dress code in addition to the requirements to have 3 pieces of ID. But they also had entertainment upstairs besides the dancing that went on the first floor. They had entertainment, and Denise Williams was scheduled to make an appearance there. And, we just loved Denise Williams. We bought all her records. So a bunch of us decided, well, we're gonna go there. Finally, we came there and we had to go through the process of showing all this ID, take off our hats and so forth. And then when we got there, the place wasn't very full. So there were only about 20 of us there. And Denise Williams was performing, so wonderful. We loved it. And she kind of stopped in the middle of it and says, you guys really love this music and how I'm singing and everything. How come there aren't more people here? And we said, because it's a racist bar. So that was that story.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a widespread, documented, occurrence, this thing of 3 forms of ID, that actually a anti-bias bar bill had to be passed, outlawing this practice of, racial profiling and asking for 3 forms of ID. And the bar hosted fundraisers, to help get that legislation on the bill. Another story that I don't know if you feel like sharing about, someone who ended up later becoming one of your really good friends. That was Lenny, and the picketing, or we can.
One time, one of the bars that really would piss you off when you tried to go in, they would harass you. They had, in fact, I saw an article that referred to part of the racist tactics that some of these bars had were having goons be the security guards. So I went there one time and I said, I'm never going to come to this place again. It makes me want to kill somebody. I can't take it. So I never went to that bar again. In fact, it was called the Mine Shaft. There may be other mine shafts now. I'm not sure that they have any connection to that bar. So not too long after that, there was an article in the paper where there was a fight at the entrance of the bar. And then after the fight, they came the next day and picketed the bar and tried to get other white people to boycott the bar. And then it turned out, there was a fight. So I said, wow, I never knew who were they? Who was that person that got in the fight with the security guard? And lo and behold, 15 years later, I was in the Eagle Creek with my union hat on, and this guy came in and he says, oh, you're in the union? I said, yeah. And we started talking. It turns out it was him that had the fight with the security guard. So it was. And
I think he punched out the security guard is the way the story goes. There's a lot of stories also about the bar that we don't necessarily share. And I always just kind of love to acknowledge, there's the stories and then there's the gossip and there's the legend, and, some things you just kind of had to be there for, but, it was real life. So you opened the bar. One of the most important things to you was, if this is going to be, the only Black owned gay bar, it has to be beautiful. Everything has to be up to code. It has to be on the level. You broke out the front and put in a big picture window. So it was a place that you were proud to be out at, to be seen in. Your brothers, my uncles, were pivotal in helping to redo the electrical. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, what the bar looked like and how it was starting this business, and maybe some of the things that went on at the bar on a daily basis?
Okay, and before I do that, I want to clarify that, you know, make reference to white gay men. And you should know that we had support from white gay men. They were involved in picketing and protesting as well. So it's not like it was a strict racial thing. So, yeah, so the Eagle Creek, I had a chance, you know, to buy it. In fact, I'd like to give credit to the previous owner, because he wanted to make sure that when he was selling the bar, that he sold it to somebody Black. And yeah, thank you for that. Okay, so at any rate, so I had a chance to, I didn't know anything about the business. I agreed to work in the bar as a bartender, learn to be a bartender, and to manage the bar, do the ordering, and make sure it was clean and so forth. So finally, when it came time to purchase it, you know, I wanted to make a lot of changes because it's a dirty bar. It was dark, and you couldn't see outside. There was no light. The bathrooms were awful. You know, I want to say nasty, but maybe that's too strong of a word. So my brothers, two of my brothers came up and said, well, we'll help you get this bar together. And, you know, and they were straight. And they, you know, we spent every penny we could scrape together from my family, and actually winded up spending $60,000 just to remodel the place. You know, in order to create new bathrooms, you had to make them handicap accessible. So a wheelchair had to be able to turn completely around inside. So we moved the bathrooms from the side to the back of the building, one on each side, and made beautiful bathrooms. And I was really happy about that. In order to bring light into the building, I took down the front wall and put a big picture window in there so that we could see out and people could see in. And otherwise, cleaned the whole thing up. There was a downstairs basement, and it was never used for anything. My brothers made departments out of it, like offices and meeting rooms and so forth and so on.
And so what was it like at the bar? What kind of parties would you have? You know, what activities went on? I know one thing that was really important to you was providing employment, right? So bartenders, DJs, you know, Black and brown men and women who weren't necessarily hired and appreciated at these other bars. You know, you provided a space. I think you said at one point you had up to 8 bartenders working.
Right, that's right. Part of the discrimination with the rest of the gay areas in San Francisco was that they didn't hire any Black people or brown people to bartend or play music even. So we made employment for people. There were 8 bartenders, like Sadie said, and we had DJs, women who were lesbian DJs and bartenders. And after all, it was kind of like a community center. We had meetings, we had discussions about issues and stuff. People would come in and want to have fundraisers for issues that affected Black people in the gay community, and we provided nights for that. There were politicians even that came in and wanted to campaign. I remember one name was Roberta Achtenberg. You may have heard about her. She, well, I think, got a position of San Francisco supervisors and was always a fighter against the discrimination. In fact, she goes way back to the picketing where my friend had a fight with the security guard. So yeah, it was like a community center that served alcohol.
And the customers were really involved, you know, in making that community. You talk about, the t-shirt that you had, it's also in the zine, was designed by one of the customers. Another, we don't even say customer, but usually, members, like it was an organization, came up with the slogan, a friendly place with a funky bass for every race. And the patrons also, kind of had the idea to do Pride and participate in San Francisco Pride in 1992. And they did fundraisers. One, gentleman sewed all of these costumes. And when I tell you they were like theater level, super high quality production costumes.
Actually, a picture in the book of Sadie when she was in a costume. And
I was 7 years old. Got to ride on the float. Definitely thought I was a princess. I was, but I was also absorbing my history and building my storytelling. But yeah, so. Yeah.
And before I get into the float, I'd like to talk about the AIDS epidemic that was going on. And that was a big part of what we were involved in. There wasn't much support at the time going around for people who contracted the disease. In fact, my brother had AIDS and died a terrible death from that disease. It was early on in the early 80s where there was no treatment hardly. And my two brothers, my brother was single, and my two brothers made sure that they took care of him, took him to his doctor's appointments and stayed with him until he died. And they were straight, they loved him and took care of him. And so he had a much more peaceful transition than he would have had. So part of what we did was to raise the consciousness of people, our customers as well, about the AIDS epidemic. And we had people from the organizations, the AIDS organizations, come speak. And if it's another thing in the book here, there was a interactive video game that members that came into the bar could get involved in. And it was actually a tutorial on safe sex and how to avoid getting infected. And it was the first place that this video was, it was a machine.
It's like a video game kiosk, right? Like a Pac-Man kind of situation.
Yeah, so we did that, and we're very proud of that. And so the customers that would come in, they said, Rodney, we go to the gay parade every year, and there's never really any reflection of us. We don't see any Black people on the float, and we need to get a float together. I said, okay, that costs a lot of money. It was thousands of dollars to put a float in the gay parade. So we decided that we would raise money, and what we did on Sundays is we had beer busts. We'd get a cake of beer, and people would come and buy plastic cups of beer for 50 cents, and until we had enough money that we could pay for a float in the parade. And like Sadie said, there was a guy, one of the customers, his name was Mario. He made these costumes for everybody that was on the float. And he was so talented. I wish I knew where he was now to thank him again. Yeah, there's a picture of the costumes, some of the costumes there. We recently, Ellen, Sadie's mother, found some footage from the float we had in 1992. So hopefully we can do something with that.
Yes. Another project is demanding itself in my life. I will attend to it.
So anyhow, so we had a fundraiser. We got enough money together to have a float. People participated in decorating the float. And, before we got into the parade, we were in the area, side street, and waiting until it was our turn to get into the parade. And then, well, we got in the parade, and then when we finally got in and turned the corner, a roaring applause came from the crowd. You know, there were like 1 million people at these gay parades when they first started. So people loved it. We had a great reception. We actually wound up getting an award for one of the best new floats or something. I can't remember what it was. But.
Yeah, so I think, you know, one thing that we wanted to talk about, and it's such a pleasure and an honor and kind of a responsibility, and I think of it as an inheritance to be able to sit up here, tell my father's story, you know, especially in New York City and with you all, like for the name of the Eagle Creek to be reverberating, you know, this far and at this moment is really special. You know, one of the reasons I wanted to do this project was because there was really no name recognition for the Eagle Creek Saloon. You know, it's not in any of the Netflix documentaries. It's not something grad students were studying. There's no Wikipedia page for it. And so, you know, to know that this name will not be lost to history because of all of the collaborators and curators and because of all of you being here and, you know, engaging in this story, it's just more than I think we could really have hoped or asked for. And one thing that I want to talk about is, you know, this installation that we are standing in. Installation is like the tip of the iceberg because it's, I think of it as a monument and an altar and a stage. But one of the things that people always ask me is, you know, is this what the Eagle Creek originally looked like? And I always laugh. I'm like, oh no, it definitely didn't look like this. But this is really, you know, a manifestation of me dreaming about the bar, both as like this daughter, a young person, but also just as an artist trying to embody what it felt like to be at the bar, you know, less what it looked like, but to think of the shine and the light refracting and people coming into their own and finding other people who are coming into their own, you know, making yourself with other people, right? This connection and community in which you get to experiment with who you are and become who you are through being witnessed and witnessing and listening to music and just getting it and flirting and, you know, all of these things that we do in space together. So that's what I wanted it to look like and to feel and to glow like. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say that when we had the bar in San Francisco, it was a real spiritual thing because a lot of the people that came to the bar, even though it was 20 years later, came to that presentation and they stood up and talked about what it meant for them to be able to come to a place where they didn't have to worry about being rejected or being treated like they weren't first-class citizens. And I had a conversation through the years with one of my friends, some of the people that came to the bar when we connected years later or whenever we connected after that, we always talked about the Eagle Creek. And one friend of mine, we talked about, I wish we could do something to bring it back to life. Maybe we could go online and have make up stories that happen, or tell stories that happened at the Eagle Creek and so forth. And it meant a lot to people. You know, when we had it in San Francisco, people were crying. You know,
in 2019, not like both at the original bar, I'm sure people were also crying. But
yeah, a lot of people crying. But the other thing is that it's no small thing to be rejected as a human being. You know, it's not something that you forget either. And it's a wound to you, and to be wounded and not allowed to go to in a community that already looked down upon, and then to be rejected by them too. It's something that's everlasting. And the truth about that, I don't think has ever been told. And anyhow, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, of course. I think that you know, that's the painful part of why it's like why this needs to be so glittery and so bright and so vibrant and so amplified. And it's why, you know, also that rejection that, you know, in the moment, I feel like when you're feeling your cutest, you know, when you're with your crew and you're going out and to be met with that disdain and racism, you know, that's why not only were you picketing and, you know, protesting at these bars, but you were also like, forget it, we're gonna make our own space and we're gonna be so fly, and all those other places can just wallow in their whackness alone, and like created this world that existed outside of all of that and could forget about all of that, you know, until 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. for the VIPs. So, you know, to me, that's what I wanted to pay tribute with this. And with this project, you know, it also really has always been an invitation for us to, you know, like my dad said, we were able in 2019 to bring a lot of the original, you know, members of the bar to the lab, and they shared stories that my dad, you know, didn't even remember because he was so busy running the bar. So I just want to shout out like December, Stephen Dorsey, Kelvin Fincher, as well as other artists that I was able to bring in. So our original bartender, Redwood Hill, and Rashad Pridgeon did an amazing dance ritual. I feel like this installation gets like absorbs all of these different energies. And so it was important to me as it continues to travel that I'm always looping back in folks who have contributed to original or previous editions. And I feel like it really seeps in to the bar, you know, into the brass, into the plexi. And
I just wanted to say that, you know, they didn't buy these things from some hotel and restaurant auction, you know. Every little thing here is built up from scratch, thought about, planned, and built, and it was hard work. And I couldn't believe it when I saw Sadie and Stephen making this thing. They worked so hard at it, and it's so beautiful. I love it so much, and it means so much. It means so much to a lot of us that go back in the day. So,
wow. Thank you, Pop. So we're gonna close out.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think we're gonna kind of wrap up and let the evening unfold as is meant to, you know, be enjoyed and be a site for historicizing and, you know, thinking about the future, and also just hanging out with each other and hopefully dancing a little bit and just, you know, being in the glow, reflecting each other's glow in this space. You know, I'm sure there's things that we maybe forgot to mention, but hopefully we can just hang out for a little bit and talk, and this conversation, you know, continues, and it's never finished. It's always unfolding. But, you know, before I really turn it over to the Black Aesthetic Collective, I just want to mention like some ways that you can keep in touch and keep following. So as well as the zine, which I, you know, encourage you to share around and gift around. My hope is that like one day someone will see it on a coffee table and say, the Eagle Creek, I was there. It's also my hope that they'll have like a treasure trove of photographs, because it's still pretty limited, the imagery that we have from the time. But also just today, the Studio Museum put a digital version on their website. So on like the archive section of the website, which is an amazing resource already. And I really hope that, you know, people can share that with students who may not be able to get access, you know, to the actual zine. And, you know, you can also just like follow on Instagram and see where the project goes next and who gets, you know, looped in and folded in to the project. Was there any kind of closing things that you wanted to mention? Also, y'all should come back on March 5th will be the closing, I don't know what it'll be, the closing event, the closing journey. Bacchanal, it's going to be a vibe for sure that Madison Moore will be curating for the final event. What else?
Well, I'd just like to myself thank the kitchen for providing this space for it and understanding that it was important to a lot of people to be able to be here. And so many other people. I'd like to thank people involved in Sadie's development to being a great artist that she is too. It's Thelma from.
Yeah, I mean, the first time that actually me and you did like a conversation in this, you know, formalized way was at the Studio Museum in 2015. We stole the couch from Thelma's office, brought it down to the stage. And, you know, that was really a moment for me to just say, yes, like this family history is going to be the story that I'm going to share. Family history is not separate from American history. The conversations that are happening, you know, on the couch and at the dining room table, these are our histories. And so let's, you know, cherish them, elevate them, put them on the museum stage, dance about them, you know, let's get into it.
Just one footnote here. The city of San Francisco did come up with an ordinance against asking for 3 pieces of ID. No restaurant or bar in the city or county of San Francisco could ask a person for more than 1 piece of ID.
So thank you for joining us and rocking with us. We're gonna turn it over to the Black aesthetic. There's so much I could say, but I think they can just show you and then you will know. So thanks, y'all. And thank you, Dad.
Miss Honey, 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 Miss Honey. Don't you hear me calling you Miss Honey? I know you hear me calling you Miss Honey. The bitch knew that I'll be back. She knew that I would not go long, Miss Honey. Miss Honey! Where's the bitch? She's got some nerve. Here I am and feeling fears. Miss Honey! Miss Honey! Miss Honey! Miss Honey! Don't you hear me calling you Miss Honey? Don't you hear me calling you Miss Honey? Don't you hear me calling you? Don't you hear me calling you? Don't you hear me calling you Miss Honey? The bitch knew that I'll be back. She knew that I would not go long, Miss Honey. Miss Honey! Yes, bitch, she's got some nerve. Here I am, I'm feeling scared. Miss Honey! Miss Honey! Miss Honey! Miss Honey! Miss Honey! Miss Honey, 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 Miss Honey. Miss Honey, 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 Miss Honey. Miss Honey. Miss Honey. Miss Honey.
This is a special shot going out to my mama, Miss Ernestine Charles. Mama used to do people hair in the kitchen. Press and curl, hot curlers, every day. I love you, mama. Black hair is a revolution. Cornrows, honey, I am tender-headed. Cherry curls, style, sophistication, Afro puff. Hair weave, call her Miss Ross. Welcome. Welcome to my 40th birthday party. Yes, it's true. The doll is 40 years old today. I know this might be a little different for some of you, and those of you that are on speed, well, you just have to calm down for a minute. This is the party, right? And we're gonna leave you with this. This is a party. We're trying to make the night a special night, make the mood a special mood. It's a cabaret, it's a party. Think about Paris in the 20s, New York in the 30s, San Francisco in the 40s. I know you can do that. Dig this. This is gonna make you laugh. Goes like this. What could it shut down? Alone in your room. Come with the music playing. Don't you like music countdown? Lay on top. Come on, come on, come on to the cabaret. Start going get tenor from cradle to tomb. It is a long day. Well, you're not your mind with the cabaret. Oh, child, go to the cabaret. And quit your wine. Forget the fear. Stop that shout, make it right this way, you tell man. Stop financing from cradle to tomb. Get your signal posh game. Is awfully heavy. I want everybody to have a piece of the cake. It's like having a piece of the rock. Eat it all, okay? I'm gonna come and cut this cake later. I love you all so much. Thank you. Thank you. I want you to have a fabulous evening. I'm gonna go do a costume change and change into my butcher's drag. Just to let you know, we have something for everyone. They have this, and we have that, and we have the other. And drag is drag. $600 worth of leather and a $600 dress is the same as drag. All right? I love you. God bless you all. Thank you so much. This is my home, and I love you. Thank you.
San Francisco? Yeah. Oh man, I'm gonna tell you about San Francisco. San Francisco ain't did a thing for me. I mean, ever since I got out of high school, I had a couple of jobs. I worked at a couple of hat companies and warehouses. I mean, after a while, they say, well, I guess we're gonna lay you off for a couple of weeks, you know. All right, they talk about the South. The South is not half as bad as San Francisco. You want me to tell you about San Francisco? I'll tell you about San Francisco. The white man, he's not taking advantage of you out in public like they're doing down in Birmingham, but he's killing you with that pencil and paper, brother. When you go to look for a job, can you get a job? Can you get a job, Winkle?
This is San Francisco. Americans pretend does not exist. They think I'm making it up. I imagine it'd be easy if any white person walking through San Francisco to imagine that everything was at peace. Because it certainly looks that way, on the surface. San Francisco is much prettier than New York. It's easier to hide in San Francisco than it is in New York. Because you got the views, you got the hills, you got the San Francisco legend too, which is that it's so cosmopolitan and forward-looking. But it's just another American city. And if you're a black man, that means it's a better thing to say. Children dying here as they are in New York for the very same reason. Let's see, it's a much better place to lie about. It's really all it comes to. Nobody wants to destroy the image of San Francisco.
One, a free man with a dream. I remember the first time I saw Essex Hemphill, his image. I was sitting in the back of Dr. Norris T. Jones Jr.'s African-American documentary film class. The back of the class is where you would find me because I tried my best not to be seen. One day, Dr. Jones played Marlon Riggs's documentary, Black Is, Black Ain't for our class. Throughout the film, I struggled to fight back tears. Hemphill plays a prominent role in it. If I remember correctly, he's shot sitting on the floor in a maroon tank top. I thought he was so attractive, so eloquent, so comfortable, so Black, while critiquing many of the things I thought made one Black. In his poem, Heavy Breathing, Hemphill writes, "Occasionally, I long for a dead man I've never slept with. And I wonder if I long to resurrect Hemphill to salve the loneliness, as he puts it, that I believe he and I share as we mourn the closing of our favorite Black gay bars in the District of Columbia." Hemphill, in his poem American Wedding, espouses a belief in a marriage of sorts. However, he proposes marriage in America, lowercase, possibly connoting this land as a diminishing resource, something other than a nation state. I would like to believe that an artist like Frank Ocean, who does not believe in time travel, but is a product of Tumblr, at some point fell through some distracting virtual wormhole and happened upon Hemphill's American Wedding, and that it in some way influenced his song of the same name. In Ocean's American Wedding, he and his teenage bride get tattoos in place of actual wedding rings. Hemphill's version begins, quote, "In America, I place my ring on your cock where it belongs," end quote. He sees his bond as a shelter, protection from those looting the land, while assured he and his partner will die by their own hands. The preceding lines, quote, "They don't know we need each other critically," end quote, possibly referencing a critical condition, alert the reader to the virus in large part shaping this queer relation. In the end, a divorced Ocean walks around Los Angeles with a fading purplish blue ring tattoo, and Hemphill, quote, becoming powerful, frees a dream from his now cock-ringed erection, a quote unquote new world coming. What happened to the cock rings, Frank? In some of American weddings' less lurid lines, Hemphill claims that, quote, "What the rose whispers before blooming, I vow to you. I give you my heart, a safe house. I give you promises other than milk, honey, liberty. I assume you will always be a free man with a dream." Ocean ends his famed coming out letter with the line, quote, "I feel like a free man," end quote. I dreamed that Ocean, like me, like us, was locked in Hemphill's safe house. That Black gay cultural production has a duration that can bear witness to the opening of Hemphill's heart. That even now, after all this, it can usher forth a free man with a dream. 2, Midnight Sun. To your right, you'll find a small lounge with couches facing a window looking out on the cable car stop across the street. Behind that, a long bar that meets the back of the club. To your left, there's a row of seating the length of the bar, and at center, a long, skinny walkway dance floor ending in a stage. The Midnight Sun provided a temporary haven for me and a bunch of Black queer kin on Monday nights. For 4 weeks at a Black drag show commandeered by Queen Honey Mahogany, aptly titled Mahogany Mondays, we got our lives in the less than inviting Castro. I thought of the Midnight Sun when I first walked into Sadie Barnette's new Eagle Creek Saloon. Then planted in the center of San Francisco's industrial art space, The Lab, itself housed within the Redstone Labor Temple. Barnette's beckoning orb of a bar is dedicated to the memory of her father's short-lived watering hole, the new Eagle Creek Saloon, the first Black-owned gay bar in San Francisco. Reimagined in Barnette's distinct aesthetic, the iridescent bar features neon lighting, crystals, holographic paper, and candy-coated soda cans and speakers, an homage to the disregarded and their things. When Prince Purple light is cast across the space and house music blares, the installation speaks of only promise and possibility. On opening night, patrons of the original saloon formed a chorus of voices echoing through the space, letting us know that the places some now imagine as utopian used to ask for 3 forms of identification when their Black faces showed up at the door, longing for entry. One such place was the Midnight Sun, which only later would become, by way of Mahogany Mondays, a refuge for me and my friends. For a short time at the Sun, the occasional drink in our hand, tongue down our throat, and the consistent presence of glitter, verve, bass, and revolution on stage made the Bay livable. As Black church elders like to say, trouble don't last always. Indeed, in the Bay, little does. Drink in our hand, tongue down our throat, and the presence of glitter, verve, bass, and revolution.
In America, in America,
I am very freaky, freaky.
Paraded proudly, flaunted like a man. Pervert the language. Paraded proudly, paraded, proudly, flaunted like a man.
in America,
Pervert the language. Pervert the language. Pervert the language.
I'm Charles King. Wet me with the next line.
America,
Roll your head like the thinker. Shake your arms like the Maasai.
Pervert the language.
America,
Oigamos cimarrón. The simplest acts are the bravest, like rearranging syllables is revolution. I must
remake my history, rewrite history, redecline a past and conjugate a future. Rearranging syllables is revolution, 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 revolution.
Next line.
Paraded proudly, flaunted like a man. Think negative, think negative. Horizontal stripes are in. Think flaunted like a man. Proudly, think pervert the language.
In America.
Pervert the language.
Every time we kiss. Every time we kiss.
Initiate me.
Inhale colors, peel back the withered apple. Thrust, worn, gritty fingers in my mouth. Worn, gritty fingers in my mouth.
Every time we kiss. Every time we kiss.
To love you,
time we kiss.
like a lesbian, like a man, make love to you like worship. Taste you where it burns my tongue, discovering cracks and crevices.
Hold my head in hand. Bless it. Slice it. Leave a cross on its tip. Bless it.
I give you my heart.
Leave a cross on its tip.
I give you my heart.
Worship, love to you like worship, 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 worship.
What's the matter? Are you scared?
I am afraid of forgetting our language.
Are you safe?
No immunity in this.
Are you sure?
No immunity in this procession of dying Holy Ghost, bearing plastic jar of Vaseline like a relic, like an icon, like a cross. Rewrite history, redecline a past and conjugate a future, reinvent etymology, grow new roots, pervert the language.
Gender, blender, blur.
Revolution,
Gender, blender, blur.
Revolution. A chain of tongues, a chain of tongues unchained, a chain of tongues unchained, a chain of tongues unchained.
Every time we kiss.
Revolution.
We confirm the new world coming.
Initiate me.
Rio shaping language into power, food and substitute for sex, into tools like weapons of survival, rage and passion with the clarity of spit.
In America, in America, in America, I place my ring on your cock where it belongs. No horsemen bearing terror, no soldiers of doom will swoop in and sweep us apart. They're too busy looting the land to watch us. They don't know we need each other critically. They expect us to call in sick, watch television all night, die by our own hands. They don't know we are becoming powerful. Every time we kiss, we confirm the new world coming. With the rose whispers before blooming, I vow to you. I give you my heart, a safe house. I give you promises other than milk, honey, liberty. I assume You will always be a free man with a dream. In America, place your ring on my cock where it belongs. Long may we live to free this dream. Long may we live to free this dream. Long may we live to free this dream. Long may we live to free this dream.
Divided we fall. Divided we fall. Divided we fall. Divided we fall. United we're free.
A haptic failure to define. Noun, black as in truly a drop of sun under the earth. Black as in nothing and everything, as in of the void, as is of the cosmos. Black like my mama's mama in the diasporic wave of my granddaddy's hair. Black like gel. Black like pomade and Soul Glow and Zamunda and all other imagined communities that might be diaspora. Black like the beginning, black like the everlasting, black like 10 packs of Kankankaline, 1B, black like punk before white boys, black like West African funerary cloth, black like grief, black like mourning before your eyes open, femme, as in of the feminine, but extra. Femme as in chaotic, big-bodied, hairy, and heavy-breasted, as in the body autonomous in its disarray. The aesthetic of a glamorized rejection of piety. Piety understood as that thing built on a bent black back, or no breast at all, and no womb neither, or maybe mind your business, and your business be the glitter around our collective navel, opening up a gloss mouth, who knows what will come up. Maybe the mouth won't open, just purse itself precious, keep its tongue swirling around its own inside parts. Femme says something about seeing sex, a taste of one's own sex on moist fingers. Femme is proudly savory, pungent, and still honey sweet. Adjective. Black femme is anti-normative. That is before heteronormative, homonormative, and every other kind of neat identity. Femme is a transgressive openness. Black femme is that ungendered, amazing stroke of pansexual potential, but no TD spillers, not for invasion, but for play and pleasure. And yes, violation, but only because there's some godforsaken line between femme and opening and wound. So those of us who open whatever we open are bound to be impaled, but sometimes we refuse and swallow and bite and cut back with eyes, wing liner and diamond encrusted brass knuckles, other pointy things, pepper gel because it's more precise. My taser is a pink vessel of Oya, zip, zack, zilch. To immobilize that which seeks to kill is a kindness, truly. Compassion, dharma, and all the jazz metaphysics of the dilemma born. Intozake is somewhere with her hand on she hip, backbone slipping to and fro. Black femmes get your panties in a bunch precisely because they ain't got no panties on. Fingers snap in agreement. Black femme is more than aesthetic coherence and a solid rack of wigs. Black femme is me and mines in the Black euphoria at last, or Dyke Asperly speaking, Black femme is where you arrive around the corner from your favorite intersection. Black femme is charcoal colored vulva, still watermelon pink in the middle. Black femme is a tight tuck between the patriarchal legs of your lazy misrecognition. The realest niggas out wear chiffon 90s and iridescent lip gloss. Their lips purse or pucker or smack into cadence, unveiling the kind of lyrical agility some folks falsely attribute to the masculine. A hood film realness I've been chasing my whole life, a display of aesthetic access that makes me feel at home in my extraness, secure in my high femininity. There is no reality here. Cake skips and jaunts his fantasy excess around the small rectangular stage, a ratty approximation of fur clenched in a bejeweled fist thrown over mic stand. For a moment, lost in the crowd, I feel a hand slide to meet its counterpart resting above my navel. Held this way, a safe warmth makes its way through me. In this hold, I contemplate my capacity to feel through others, for others to feel through me, for me to feel them feeling me. Hapticality finally makes something close to sense, feels something akin to love. And by love, of course, I mean infatuation, or maybe an unexpected comfort that coaxes the beholden to sink in a little. And in this dipping below the surface, a theory that has perplexed me for the past 18 months becomes clear. How might we imagine feeling as two dark, Black marked beings in tandem, pushed into a steady rock by sweat-soaked bodies, competing for better views of the dream workers on stage? Stage, the outstretched horizon of Black femme possibility. Am I being held out of necessity or desire? Is there much difference between the two drives in the life worlds of Black queers?
My name is Ife. I came here from Paris 1 year ago. I had heard that San Francisco is a very gay city and that there are many beautiful women here from all over the world. For me, a woman who adores women, to be here is really good. You know what I mean? When I first arrived here, I was so excited to see all the women because they all have their own unique style and there are so many flavors. I must admit, since I've been here, I try to taste them all. Yes, it has been very nice for me. I feel more free to be myself. Here, I can look any way I want to, like a man or a woman, depending on my mood. In Paris, All the women look more, you know, feminine. They wear the sexy little clothes and makeup, and always in fashion, of course. But it is not so free. It's okay. It's sexy and alluring, but there is not a choice, really. Here, everyone belongs to a tribe, and they want to be recognized and noticed. I really like it. It is like one big party. There are so many things that are different for me here. It is good, yet often I miss Paris. No matter where you go, there are the same days of despondency, the same cigarette. But having more of what you want is always better. My philosophy is this: you can never experience too many women, and I promise myself to never fall in love. But I have to admit, it was a close call with Anna. Anna, she's so sweet and very beautiful, such an exquisite touch. My time with her was sublime, but I stopped myself before it is too late. I know I must be very careful. It would be disastrous for her to fall in love. For the pain, I would not wish that on my worst enemy. Sometimes when I was with Anna, I think of Whitney. I know I shouldn't, but I miss Whitney. Her white laugh and naughty mind. She's a genius of sex. With her, I become brilliant. It's strange how some people can really inspire you and bring out your talent. I laugh sometimes. I feel like an explorer or maybe a scientist because my life is full of discoveries. Yes, it is very good to be here. You know what I mean?
Please join me in opening up the portal and welcoming our queer ancestors, Audre Lorde and Pat Parker, so that they may be here with me tonight on this Eagle Creek night with us. Dear Audre and Pat, I don't imagine either of you cared much about other people's visions of you. I don't doubt the ease of which you were able to escape the imposition of someone else's imagination, not after first surrendering to the labors of growth. I'm recalling when you wrote to Pat, recalling you writing to her about the synonymous relationship between growth and survival, a poignant collecting line you drew. Even though neither of you are here, I do believe and maybe hope that the architecture of my language, the skin of my diction, both contain and release the possibility for us to grow past survival, even in death. I know I'm unable to receive your express consent, but I should ask anyway. Can I share with you how I see you? not as an imposition on our collective memories of you, but as an attempt to extend my fingertips far enough to reach yours, your fingertips in a world parallel to mine. Once upon a time, I saw you, the both of you, traipsing up and down the lesbian grapevine. Audrey with a straight leg blue denim pant, a white button up, open just enough to expose that hollow point between the clavicles. And over that, a heavy fall colored cardigan. The best part though, the black hat with a wide and curved brim. A hat with enough presence to match your personality. And when I saw you, I said to myself, what a handsomely gay Harlem cowboy. How gracefully you inhabited the best of both worlds. Oh, but let's not mistake the real cowboy here, the suit and tie cowboy, with a pleated slack and tie and vest, Houston, Texas cowboy Pat. I saw you defending your right to don cowboy boots as they mistakenly forced a goat into the shape of a girl. I bet no one told you goats are magic. Perhaps no one reminded you that someone imposed an image onto the goat, named one goat Billy and the other goat Nanny. Someone lacking just enough in imagination, unable to see Pat comfortably situated in the space between Billy and Nanny. But I saw it. Oakland has cowboys too, still, after you. And I see these cowboys, you, both meeting in parallel time. I imagine the world you grew gay in was focused on tracing shadows rather than filling them in. The lines back then, even for the simplest of silhouettes, had not been clearly defined. But for us, the shadows are more than outlines of figures. They are shaded with nuance, escaping or at least attempting to escape the heavily drawn outline surrounding it. I'm in anticipation of a loss that I can't quite fathom until it happens. Something I know I want but can't quite comprehend. Permanently altering a part of myself that has been there since I was 11 or 12. It's not cancer, but the weight of the loss is present. The loss of a gravity presently tugging at the skin around my heart. Can you tell me what lives on in the absence of the feminine accoutrement? Those rounded reactive appendages that once removed can no longer grow or give or experience pleasure. It was in the cancer journals where you, Audrey, said, I want to write of the pain I'm feeling right now, of the lukewarm tears that will not stop coming into my eyes. For what? For my lost breast? For the lost me? And which me was that again anyway? For the death I don't know how to postpone or how to meet elegantly. I want to write of the pain I've yet to feel and of the lukewarm tears that I've yet to form for something I've elected to do for my lost breasts. I want to know what part of the self survives the amputation of a former identity. I imagine my lukewarm tears to form, instead of for a lost me, for a found me. A death and desire I can no longer postpone, in refusal of the real and the prosthetic. I wonder what would change if you knew that the shapes of your silhouettes could be neither or both, if language had transfigured in enough time to reach you. There's freedom in refusal and in choice. To choose to be a unicorn or a goat, and the choice to feel like the loss of a breast or both doesn't make you less. There's a question that sticks to my rib whenever I read you, whenever I see you. How can someone represent themselves in a simplified world when we come from a world that is bathed in complexity? Can I tell you how I see you? Can I tell you how my mouth rejects the formation of the word she? Because time has folded over, so the pages of history can touch and transfer ink and blur lines to free us from the imposition of language and of choice and of an imagination other than ours. The Black cowboy is free. The goat is free. The Black unicorn is free.
Last night, the 3rd of March, first dream that I recall, I sought refuge in a tent. I was laying and sleeping by myself with maybe 3 other individuals, 2 on one side of me and 1 on the other side of me. And I peeked out the bottom of the flap of the tent, and suddenly in the distance, I saw what looked like the inside of a fireplace moving toward me. But they were giant, giant logs, completely burning, one stacked on top of the other, 4 or 5 high. And they were being pushed by a bulldozer at tremendous speed, moving toward the tent. The next thing I knew is that I, like a banshee, was whirling throughout this park, throughout flower beds, looking for coverage so that the bulldozer with the burning logs would not get me. I woke up.
You said a system in collapse is a system moving forward. Do you remember Bill Katz? Do you remember Rodessa? Do you remember Seth? Do you remember Nadine? Do you remember Bobby? Do you remember Edith and Lon? Do you remember Judy? Do you remember Maria? Do you remember Lois? Do you remember Lois? Do you remember Nebelson? Do you remember Willie? Do you remember Keith? Do you remember Juan? Do you remember Longo? You said a system in collapse is a system moving forward. You said a system in collapse is a system moving forward. You said.
Things seem as usual. Bill and I, it appears to be, are moving into a new apartment. Outside, I see many of the people who are working on the construction surrounding this house. And there's a low brick wall, which has been put up very quickly, but very beautifully, and the beginnings of brick pathways, etc. But as I turn, I see a giant wooden scaffolding piece of material, which is usually laid on the ground, standing upright, but a young workman with his shirt off, very beautiful, is standing there, and suddenly the wooden structure falls and pins him underneath it. I'm probably the farthest distance away from it, from anyone, and there are many other people who are closer to it, but I turn away and can't look at it, and I don't in any way make an attempt to go and lift this structure off of this young man. I do, though, turn my head at one point and see that the individuals closer to it have made their way to the structure and are lifting it off of the young man, who appears to not be badly hurt.
I think we're alone now. There doesn't seem to be anyone around. I think we're alone now. The beating, you said, a system in collapse. Do you remember Bucharest? Do you remember the critic who said, work not touched by the hand of God? Do you remember Valley Cottage, that homely little house and no trees in the springtime and all those times in the attic? Do you remember the Apple Theater in Tokyo? Do you remember spring water in my mother's bedroom where she sat you down and said, you take care of my boy. He doesn't have no education. Do you remember Wayland? Do you remember the Overtone in Amsterdam? Do you remember Clinton Street and Ruthie? Do you remember all those Polish people and their Polish pride? Do you remember Sadler's Wells and the British and their effortless superiority? Do you remember Wyoming? I think we're alone now. Do you remember Valley Cottage and Blauvelt and Binghamton? I think we're alone now. I think, do you remember? I think, do you remember?
Mother was strict but loving. Big firm hands that beat me senseless that time I didn't call when I was gone for more than 8 hours. As a mother now, I can only imagine the terror that caused her already traumatized body in fear of what her teenage daughter's body might be suffering. 26, and I lay on her bed. The covers smelled of cigarettes and hugs. I edged closer to her. The clicking of her needles grew louder and louder. I grew irritated with the sound. Something that I had associated my whole life with comfort now became noise. The bubbling inside my heart, by now out of control, the clicking out of step with the waves in my chest. How would I find these words? Where did they live inside of me? Did they live inside of me? What did they sound like? Were they soft like Dad's music, familiar albums whose every curve and consonant I knew, or more like Mum's bassy and guttural tones, filling my spine with quivering threads? Uncomfortable, I moved onto my side, stared at the framed photo of Dad. His breath recently taken away from us. I could still feel the warmth of his touch, his hardened hands from years of factory and carpentry work, yet delicate enough to massage us when we fell, or to offer solace when our chests were heavy with cold. We were both broken by the loss. I want to tell you something. Oh, yes. When she spoke, the pace of my heart slowed. Her softness could be like the calm seas of the island that we had just buried Dad on. The blue that Dad recalled in all of his tales while I sat enthralled on our colorful London floor, carpet a mirror to the floral vistas of the land of their home. Home. Her tone could both pierce and caress. Yeah, but I'm not sure how to say. The clicking of her needles seemed to deliberately work against my breath, each metal on metal sound conspiring to stop those words from escaping. Me, not one to not share with Mum, but deeply afraid of what those words might mean. What did I fear in that moment? That she would stop loving me? Could she stop loving me? Her last child, her baby? Am I considering her as a person or only my fear? Is my fear so insurmountable, so suffocating that I cannot see the woman in front of me? Cigarette smoke spiraling in the air, gray tendrils of hair catching at her neck, the lines on her face from years of hiding. How dare I not trust her with my secret? How dare I think this secret could ever be a secret? She has known me since the first and knows my truth, even when I cannot say it. There aren't words to describe this anguish, this torture of not saying who I am when knowing she already knows. Like a game of painful chess, cutting myself on shards of glass. Do I say it? I'm lesbian, I'm gay. Words thrown at us like daggers, coon, packy, bull dagger, blackie, tired of the labels. I like women and boys, both at the same time. At the North London Women Who Love Women Working Class Buddhist Breath Circle, they all say Zami. I'm not feeling that. Or do I say that there's a woman I'm sleeping with whose ex is still in love with her, who's threatening towards me? that we sleep together, but she doesn't completely fulfill me because I guess in her mind, she's a femme and that makes me a stud. And so what, I don't need sexual fulfillment. I could tell her that my friends all said to stay away, but that I listened to them as though I had my head held underwater, ears filling like the tight sound of a drum. We rip our insides out, assuming our straight parents never had a queer thought, never imagined Naomi's mum, tall, fair-skinned with that loose tangle of curls on top, sweating in that hot London sun. It was many years later with my own daughter when I saw Kapoor's Mauritius, flesh stretched across the Tate turbine hall, flaying interior flesh, so that one could almost see the blood dripping onto those high, polished floors. We turn ourselves outside in when these secrets that we hold inside sometimes can't be hid. Sometimes they are visible like a gentle plague, soft timbre playing on our skin. What is a coming out? What is coming out? Why is coming out? When we speak and we move and we eat and we live and we dance and we vibe and we love and we know our children, we know our family, we know fam, we know each other. We are kin, we are blood, we are a house, we are.
Please stand and dance as you are willing and able. In the name of the Father, the Mother, the Daughter, the Son, the Three-Spirited, the ones who are both, and the ones who are neither, and the Holy Spirit, in the name of art, and in the name of culture, in the name of making and viewing, in the name of sweat and love, and in the name of Frankie Knuckles, and all of the house music saints in that great cloud of wetnesses. Therefore, since we have such a great nightclub and smoke machine of witnesses surrounding us, let us also lay aside every encumbrance and the sin which so easily entangles us, the cult of respectability. And let us run with endurance the race that has been set before us. Let us dance, fixing our eyes upon the DJs and our hips to the dance floor. Let us lose our minds so that we can see Jesus on the dance floor, the only queen who can wear linen and not get any drink spilled on her. Jesus, the author and the perfecter of faith, the DJ and the spinner of house, the twirler and the leaper, Jesus, the Vogue queen, who but for the joy, who but for the joy, who but for the joy endured the closing of cables and Loretta's and the garage and the generator and esta noche, despising the shame, and has sat down on the right corner speaker at the throne of God and is ready to go in on our behalf. Finally, beloved, I pray that the word that went forth out of their mouths on that dance floor from that bar stool, like it will for all of the children in all of the tea rooms, at all of the tea dances, under that lopsided wig and under that anointing, through that first testosterone injection, through the first inkling that you like trans girls, that you really like men, that you like non-binary folks, that you are attracted to gender non-conforming folks, that you just want to be danced and you just want to be held during that diagnosis, in that prayer, through that cry, on that dope, and in that hope. While wearing that and lip syncing that, I pray that the word and the reed and the air kiss will not return unto us void, but it is accomplishing that which God pleased, landing on the still sweat and tear-soaked cheeks and lips of its intended. And yes, beloved, God is prospering in this thing, in this body, in me and in us, the wrecked and the racked, whereto they sent it and they spent it, all air kisses. I pray one day, children, that all of your gifts, all of the unconventional and new and old things that you were called to do, and all of your inherent wisdoms from all of the directions from which the diasporas of your hips spin will be welcomed and expected in places that you could have never imagined. One day soon, children, a new song, your gospel twirl, is coming that will gather all of the accounts of your encounter with the divinity. I pray it on top of and next to sound systems and speakers. One day, all of your moves will be recorded. One day, you will be amplified and loved. One day, you will be both ahead of your time and on time. One day, you, all God's children, LGBTQI and not, will know that whatever and whoever we have outlived, that we will enter no room and no dance floor without acknowledging the room that they left for us. Ashe, amen, and honey boom.